Welcome to an episode of Founder in the Chair. I'm your host, Veena, and my guest today was raised with values that ran deeper than ambition: service, humility, compassion. Rooted in India and Sikhism, she learned early on what it truly means to give from the heart. And while she always had big dreams, life didn't take her where she expected. Moments that could have broken her, but instead built her. Becoming a single mum at a young age wasn't part of the plan, but it became the foundation of everything that followed. Because when you're raising a child on your own, you don't just learn how to survive, you learn how to truly understand, emotionally, mentally, and deeply. And that's where everything shifted. What started as a profession became a purpose. Not just supporting children with autism, ADHD, Down syndrome, or emotional regulation challenges, but helping them thrive. But the real breakthrough, realising that it doesn't start with the child, it starts with the parent. Because how can you regulate your child's emotions when you don't understand your own? This is bigger than therapy. This is about raising emotionally strong, resilient children, while becoming the strongest version of yourself in the process. This is Impact, and this is the story of Super Kids therapist. So excited to welcome the lady behind this. Welcome, Charan.
Hi, thank you for having me, Veena.
I'm so excited to hear your story. You've been through things that weren't expected.
Yes, definitely. But it's been a bit of a journey and a very interesting one. And I'm happy to share it with you all today.
I'm so excited. So firstly, tell me, a lot of people don't understand, what is occupational therapy and why is it life-changing? It's not just therapy.
So occupational therapy is retraining the daily life skills of people with disabilities. So it could be either physical, mental health, but it also could be developmental delay in children. And why it's so life-changing is because everyday life skills are things very simple, like getting dressed, being a parent, being able to brush your teeth, or being able to write for a child, or attending class. So, you know, I've worked across all age groups from birth to older adults. And when you start creating that change in that individual's life, it's so empowering to see the results at how that individual can go back to their day-to-day independence and that you've been a part of that journey. And I think that in itself is just magical. And it takes me back to my values and reminds me of all the things, the reason why I actually got into the profession originally. When you see that small shift in that individual's life, it's beyond rewarding. It's priceless.
So tell me, Charan, how did it all start for you? What happened in your life that took you down this journey?
Yeah, so when I'd gone to India, that was actually the first time I've been, when I was 17. And so my grand's brother was there and he was suffering from a stroke, couldn't speak. And at that time, I had to decide what I wanted to do and what route I wanted to go down. And my college tutor actually really believed in me. She was like, you know, Charan, I don't really see you as a physio, but I see you as an occupational therapist. And I was like, what is that? And then obviously she briefed me and told me all about it. And, you know, when I researched into it, I was like, this is amazing. It's not just teaching someone how to walk. It's teaching someone how to live. So yeah. And then after that, I just, you know, you go through your hurdles of life. And, you know, you get times where like, is this even right for me? And, you know, my education wasn't easy, but thank God, you know, with my family's support and my inspiration and my drive, I made it to where I am. I mean, it's unreal. And then to have worked for the NHS for such a long time and then have your own business, it's for me, it took a lot of courage, but I think, you know, I'm very grateful to where I am today.
So you worked for the NHS?
Yeah.
Trained,
yeah. And then after that, so I'd literally, it was a point, I think I was sitting in a special school when I was working there about 3 years back. And I thought to myself, can I really see myself doing this for the rest of my life? Like, is this giving me the ability to make the difference I truly want to make? Because I felt like I was so wasted. Like my skills were so wasted. I was like, there's so much more I can do with this. And instead of being so restricted with so much within the NHS, then I think I just had to take that leap of faith. And there was a lot of people I worked with that were like very fearful of change because they were like, so comfortable in their 9-to-5 jobs.
It's safe.
It's safe, yeah. And I was like, I'm not made for this. Like, there's so much more. And I remember having conversations with parents and the difference I'd made just working in that special school. I knew that there was more I could do to empower children. So then I took that leap of faith and here I am, Super Kids therapist.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you said you were meant for more. So when you realised you weren't meant for an average path, what gave you the courage to follow your calling and create Super Kids Therapist? Now, I know you said you took the leap of faith. Is it anything to do with your child? Was it anything to do with what you were going through at the time?
To be honest, it was my boy, because as well, like, he plays a big part in it, because every day you wake up and like, as a single mum, of course, and you think to yourself, what can you do to make that child's life better? Like, even if whatever it is, like, what can I leave him that's going to give him so much sort of reward and growth? And for him to stand up and say, yeah, that was my mum, that's what she did. And that in itself just pushed me every single day. And I think alongside that, it was my spirituality and my friends and family. So I had obviously got into spirituality in like 2016. So I'd been meditating a lot and had a lot of guidance and support. And from that, and obviously Sikhi, getting more into like understanding the religion better and serving, I really realized that this is it. This is I'm made, these values are so strong, and, not to get caught up in the financial aspect of making money, because it's so easy to do that. So that obviously pushed me as well. I have a best friend who plays a massive part in this, because he knew everything. Like, he was like my biggest inspiration, because, I didn't even know how long it took to design a logo until I actually was in, part of that journey with him. And, it really, took me back at, starting a business is not easy at all. And, you've got to put a lot of thought and perfection into it. So, but he was like my business coach, and I give a lot of gratitude to him, because I don't think I'd be here today if it wasn't for him. With the website design, logo design, the colours, the theme, it was all down to him. So yeah, so that, and then obviously my family and their support, because obviously to start your own business, you need time. And when your child's so young and you're a single mom, it's tough. Like, so my mom, my dad, my best friends, my brother, my sister, like, it's all down to them. I think if it wasn't for their support, I honestly, I don't know where I'd be today. So yeah.
You had a very good support network.
Definitely.
So in your intro, you mentioned something about parents need to understand their emotions.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that, and how do you help with that?
Yeah. So when I started reading a lot about emotional regulation, for me, parenting is about understanding yourself first. It's not about controlling your child. And I think that's where, a lot of us, go wrong, because especially coming from the South Asian background, as I, learned more about emotional regulation, it's important as a parent to co-regulate. Because if your glass is empty, where are you, what are you able to give your child? Because then you will always come from a place of reaction. You'll never come from a place of feeling. And what children want is they want connection. And that connection is what supports behavior. The thing is, there's many reasons why children, overreact or, have meltdowns. And that, when a child does react like that, that's communication. And, as a professional and, with my hat on, I can understand and look into the root cause of that behavior. Is it because, that child is depressing? Is it because it's a sensory issue? And it's so... is it a parenting style? And this is something that I can delve into in more detail, look into, and then support parents. And it's not always about, fixing your child. It's about giving parents the tools to be able to handle situations in a more calmer, regulated way.
So you do sessions with the parents and the child?
Yes, yeah. So you can use two different models. You can use a parent coaching model, or you can use a model where you work directly with the child from an early years, and children that are a lot younger. doing parent coaching is very beneficial, and there's a lot of evidence around out there around it too.
Which generation would you say has had it really difficult? Like, you know, I was born in the 70s, so my parents were, strict. You know, it's done this way. South Asians do it this way and not any other way. What will people say? So you're growing up, oh my God, I can't do it this way. Or, you know, what will people say? And, you know, and I'm now like 54 and I'm still like, yeah, I was told to do it this way and I have to do it this way. But obviously my children aren't going to listen. My daughter's 33. If I try to tell her to do what I did when I was her age, she's going to be like, yeah, whatever, mum. Yeah. How do you bridge that gap?
So I think it's important to really, I think connection is key. I think time, and I think especially, you know, busy parents don't really give that time. And, you know, me myself having experienced this, a lot of parents tend to be an autopilot. Let's do our job, come home, clean up, go to bed. But I think it's about taking that time to connect. Even if it's 10 minutes a day, you just spend, you know, have some special time with your child, no matter what age they are, because that quality time is going to give you that understanding. It's going to give you a connection. And that way your child's able to communicate what's actually going on. You know, a prime example of this is I always try and make a conscious effort to spend time with my son before bed at least. And then the other day, he literally bit me unexpectedly. And I was like, where has this come from? And then I just knew he needed to vent. So I just was calm and I just gave him a cuddle and I didn't say anything. And then he vented at me and said, Mummy, I did so bad in school today. And he was masking that and internalizing it so much. But had I at that point questioned him and, you know, really kind of, you know, not given him that opportunity to speak, and just all he needed was for me to be present and not say anything. And that in itself speaks volumes. It's not always about having the right words to say or, you know, saying something. It's about showing it through your actions. And that's key. That's key.
So that would normally a parent would react, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you've bitten me. What are you doing? Tell them off.
Yeah.
But your way was just so different.
Yeah, because I understood the behaviour. I understood what happened before. I understood the environment. You know, that's usually a time he's calm. So, you know, this is a time he usually talks, you know, and what could this be? And really kind of really thinking deeper. I feel like, you know, we do come from a very controlling mindset when it comes to children, because not, you know, for all their, you know, best interest and well-being. But when you start to co-regulate, the connection and the behaviour elements will naturally reduce.
So you mentioned you're a single parent.
Yeah.
And obviously it's really hard for the mother or the father, because sometimes, most of the time, the child is with the mother and the father just gets, you know, weekends or possibly 50-50 time with the child. How do you suggest that parents get that right? Because it's really hard. I mean, I often hear, you know, the dad probably gets the child 20% of the time. Sometimes it's the other way around as well. And, you know, if the relationship isn't good between the mum and dad, the child gets the brunt of it.
Correct. Yeah.
How do you, what's your advice to, if there's somebody listening right now, single parent, whether it's the man or the woman, the mum or the dad, what advice would you give them?
I would say try not to let your own dynamics come between the child. And don't talk about your relationship to the child either. I think my biggest advice would be is just build your own connection. Start from scratch. I don't think, you know, this is especially to fathers, single fathers out there, because I feel like they need to also communicate and have that connection with their child and build that connection, which they probably don't do enough of, because, you know, with fathers, they always tend to come with the provider hat. So it's all about, you know, we're going to be the fun parent and, you know, we're going to be the ones that you do the activities with. But instead, really connecting and talking, I think, is key, because especially, you know, like boys tend to connect more, girls, it's a little bit different. So I think, you know, just having that connection and communication is key, and just not letting your own dynamics come between the children, because, you know, or not talking about it, because there will be those questions eventually. what happened. Like my son's 8 and I'm still waiting for that. But when those questions do come up, just being prepared, just to keep it fairly mutual and let your child live their own journey. This is their journey. And, they're going to figure out what's right and wrong. They're going to understand personalities, characters. And eventually, they've lived it themselves. They've been there subconsciously, even when they were little, depending obviously on the age of the separation and divorce.
I've got friends going through divorce at the moment, and it's really hard. The father will say one thing when he's got them at the weekend. The mother's then saying something else. The poor child is then playing up at school.
Yeah.
And then they wonder what's happened. And it's so unfair on the child. It's almost like the children are used as a weapon. Like, I'm going to do something and say something that's going to upset your mum, or vice versa. And it's so bad to see it. And they probably know they're doing it, but the parent just wants to get that dig in.
Yes. And I think that's where it's, sort of beyond the connection, that's where therapy can be quite useful, because when a external therapist comes in, it's a third person. And if that person needs to speak to the mum or the dad separately and really kind of see how it's impacting the child's life, because they don't probably see the impact it's having because they're not communicating. So when you start, and I've had this in therapy, and when you go in and you're like teaching the child how to emotionally regulate, or you're trying to dig deep into the root cause of what's actually going on, then you go back and you feedback, and they start having the aha moments. Then a lot of parents do start then implementing that small change, and it's that's where, things like OT and psychology are crucial, are very crucial. And I also feel like South Asians are a little bit hesitant to seek that help. There's a lot of lack of understanding, in how these professionals can help. And I think that's where a lot of the awareness needs to go out there.
Wow. Okay. So if somebody wanted to build a business from a place of purpose and service without losing yourself in the pressure to succeed, because you mentioned earlier about money. It wasn't about money. You had a great mentor, you had a friend who really guided you. But it's not easy to set up a business like this. And like you said, you took a leap of faith 3 years ago, left the NHS. And I believe you moved abroad as well.
I think number one is not to get caught up in the pressures of money and always trying to prove things to yourself. I think it's really aligning with your values. I think it's very important to keep aligning with your values. Why are you actually doing it? Because, it's not, for me, it's not always about the success. It's about the impact. And especially in the profession that I'm in, it's about how you leave people feeling. It's when they walk out that door, do they feel confident to be able to handle what you have in that clinic setting or that classroom setting, and that conversation you've just had? How confident does that parent feel the moment they step out of that door to change their child's life? And you're almost helping them fill that cup up so that they're ready to, face that real world. And, that is key, is staying in tune with your values and not getting caught up in the pressure of like money and trying to prove things to yourself. Because, also starting a business, you have to have a lot of self-worth. And, coming through the journey of a single mum, having that self-worth is hard because, you're facing a lot of battles, and not just generally, it's like you've got the family pressures, you've got the, your child, and at the same time, there's going to be times you're going to doubt yourself, of course. But then it's about picking yourself up and thinking, why am I really actually doing this? And I think that's where service came in for me, especially like thinking, what, when I change that person's life and the impact I'm going to make, it's going to be worth every ounce of time and every minute. So I'd say, to be honest, it's like, don't get too caught in the pressures and really think about what the real reason is. Think about your mission, think about your vision, and really stay in alignment with that. Stay in alignment with yourself. Understand yourself as well. Because doing a business is, it's easy to get caught up in a lot of things. But once you're connecting with yourself, that can help the business overall. And it can make you a lot more powerful in your approach too.
Yeah, of course. So you did move abroad to work as well. You did this in Dubai?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
How was it for you doing it there?
So I think my experience of Dubai was it's very external. Like you're very much judged by your growth. That's how success is measured there is by your growth, by your income. And I find it is a very competitive market, especially within the occupational therapy field. I had the parents I worked with really, opened my eyes to a lot of things. We had this work sort of competition where we had to get how many Google reviews can you get in 2 months? And I managed to get like 18 in 2 months. And for me, the reason why that stuck with me so much was because it wasn't about the marketing. It wasn't about, these 18 reviews, are going to get me, clients. It was nothing like that. For me, it was, this is what I left people feeling like the moment they left my clinic room. And it reminded me that I wasn't actually doing my job from a place of money. And I'm so glad I didn't get caught up in that, because being in a place like that, you can easily get caught up with that, especially when you work with a range of individuals that have come with their own reasons. And as lovely, all my colleagues were lovely. But I think, all in all, I think for me, I was still in alignment with my values. I didn't let my values, stop me from getting caught up in that type of lifestyle. And I think now, being back here, obviously, I went through a lot and then came back here. I think it's really awakened me, and I really want to make that difference here with my son. And, this is a new beginning, but for me, I think this is the right beginning now. And not, in the right place, and the environment can make a massive difference in your business and how you function day to day and how you connect with people and yourself. Because when you're in a place like Dubai, you don't get the time. You have to create the time. And even when you do, it's like 10 o'clock at night. So yeah, you have to look at the pros and cons of each thing. But no, in the UK now, I think, it's given me a lot more time to connect and reflect. And and hopefully this is a new beginning to really continuing with what I truly believe is right.
So if someone's listening right now and they want to work with you, firstly, just a little overview of what you can help with.
Yeah.
And how do they get hold of you?
Okay. So you can message me on Instagram, and I can give you my contact details on Instagram. And I have a website as well. It still needs a few sort of bits need to be finalized, but that's all up and running. I also and how I can help. So I can help with difficulties with emotional regulation. So if your child is having regular meltdowns, you're finding it very hard to cope, you're a single mom, or if you are generally finding it really hard to understand the behavior, then I can definitely help with that. If your child struggles with writing skills, they're not performing to their full potential in school, they're not, they're movement seeking a lot at home, they can't sit still during dinner, lunch, they've had excessive screen time, they're a pet, you really can't get them to do their daily activities and tasks. And you really tried everything, but it's a battle. Or even if you just want the simplest guidance, then you can contact me and I'll be able to help guide you from there.
So one of the biggest things at the moment is screen time.
Yeah.
So if someone's listening right now, can you give one little tip?
So interestingly, not all screen time is bad.
Okay.
It just depends on the image, like how fast it actually moves and how you process that information. So what I would say is just stick with the guidance depending on the age. I think if from the top of my head, under 5s, it shouldn't be, I don't think generally under 5s, I think you should limit it as much as possible and try and keep it more play-based. I think, for me, I personally give my son, I try and avoid it. I do an hour a day, but obviously it's unavoidable. So try and stick to 2 hours max, but break it down. Don't do it like for an hour consistently. Break it down in chunks, like 15 minutes, have a bit of a break, 15 minutes.
And is that something you find a lot that parents are struggling with, screen time?
I think it's also a parent coping mechanism. And I think before you give that screen time, just questioning yourself and why you're actually doing it. Is it because you're doing it to make your life easier? Or are you doing it because you really want your child to learn something and grow from it? And then once you know that, then think about the type of programs that they are watching. And is that actually bringing them value to their life? Because, it's time well spent. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I would definitely say, is just really thinking about that screen time and really what you're giving to them to see. Because there's a lot of really decent documentaries and there's things you can get like for young kids that can really help empower them. Recently, like I'm trying to get, my child, when he's on there for more than 15 minutes and I'm trying to get him off, and, always, try and go to a physical activity. And that's what I would recommend, is not to get them sitting for too long either. Get their body moving, and that will help them developmentally in so many ways. It's beyond words. Yeah.
So your website, I know you said it's under construction. What's the domain?
Oh, it's www.superkidstherapist.com.
And your Instagram?
Is @superkidstherapist.
And any other platforms, TikTok or anything like that?
So yeah, I'm on TikTok as well. Or you can find me on LinkedIn at Charan. And that will be they're the main portals for now. Yeah.
And do you do a free discovery call?
Yes, at the moment I am offering a 10 to 15 minute free discovery call. So if anyone is interested, they can reach out to me, and I'm happy to just help parents understand if they need this or if they don't. And I think it's quite essential to have that, especially if you're iffing and ahhing, then it's good just to get that second opinion.
Okay. Thank you so much, Charan.
Thanks. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks.